Hello, welcome back. It has been a while. I tried to do this bit over lockdown, didn't quite happen, but now I've got plenty of spare time on my hands, so I'm going to be getting straight stuck into some YouTube stuff at the start of the Premier League season. We are starting today with a big video, Premier League predictions. We're going to be looking at every team, assessing teams, seeing where we're at with them, and seeing where I think we're going to finish. I've got the lovely Tier Maker website loaded on the computer screen, so we're just going to be going from the start to the finish, starting from the bottom, working our way up to the top, and yeah, let's see where I've got teams finishing. We are going to start with 20th place, the relegation places, and in 20th place I am going for AFC Bournemouth. Obviously came up last year from the Championship, so just cannot see them staying up, unfortunately. I think even Scott Parker has come out the last couple of days and admitted that he doesn't think the squad's depth's quite good enough. They've got a bit of an injury crisis, which is never good going into the start of the season. I just cannot see them getting goals from anywhere. Solanke, I think he contributed almost half of their goals in terms of goals and assists last year in the Championship. I can't see that being converted into the Premier League next season. And as for their defence, it was very good for Bournemouth, actually. Not something we'd normally associate with them, perhaps, but yeah, again, I can't see that translating to the Premier League. Struggled previously in terms of that aspect, and as much as I like Scott Parker as a manager and rate him, don't think he's going to have enough to take to keep Bournemouth up this season. So I think it's going to be an instant drop back down to the Championship for Bournemouth. Moving on into 19th place, joining them, it's Fulham. Another newly promoted team, a bit boring start of the predictions, but unfortunately, once again, just cannot see the good form they showed last year in the Championship translating over to the higher level. Obviously, a lot of their success, or lack of it, is going to be down to Mitrovic up top. Had an unbelievable season last year, historic in the Championship. But I just cannot see it translating for him. It hasn't previously. I don't see any reason why it will this year, despite obviously the fact he's scored more goals than ever or whatever. It just doesn't seem to happen for him. Cannot see it happening again. And they've made some good signings for Fulham. We've seen them previously. You would go sort of one extreme to the other, go for lots of signings. They spent about 120 million that one window, but didn't happen for them. They went straight back down, and then last time much more cautious approach, not many additions at all, and just had the same result, straight back down. They've tried to go in the middle this year. Some good players being signed, but players that I think are going to take some time to adapt to the Premier League, and unfortunately for them, not again have what it takes to stay in the Premier League. I like Marco Silva as a manager once again, but I hope Fulham stick with him, but they've often been a team to start badly, panic, get rid of the manager, and results in them going down. And I cannot see Fulham staying up again, even though I think they perhaps have more chance than they have last couple of times. I remember Jamie Carragher saying, I can't remember what it was, he'd be amazed if Fulham stayed up or whatever it was, but yeah, Fulham joining Bournemouth, two promoted teams going down. But I don't think it's going to be the third Championship team to go down. That is very boring to do the predictions. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to go for Southampton. Now, Southampton are a team that you just think of them nowadays as a stable Premier League team. I don't know how long they've been in now. It's been a while. Had lots of early success, some great teams, but it'd probably be fair to say slowly declining, and they normally start the season quite well, sort of make their way into a position where by the new year they're not doing anything, they're not going to qualify for Europe, they're not going to go down, results tail off, and nothing really happens for them. This season I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I think they've got a really tough run of opening fixtures. Hasenhüttl is a man that seems to divide opinion at St Mary's, and I think tough start to the season could lead to questions being asked around of him. and I just don't think they've had enough additions to the squad. I think they've almost been caught sleeping, sort of taking their Premier League place for granted nowadays, and of course, such a dangerous thing to do, and so I just think that could be to their demise. As I say, tough run fixtures start that could drop morale, stuff like that, and I think they're going to be heavily reliant on James Ward-Prowse to help them from set pieces, which obviously he's brilliant at, but I just can't see it being enough. They had Broha at Chelsea from Chelsea last year on loan. He's not returned. Good striker for them that scored quite a few goals. But they're going to have to be replaced, and I don't think they have been. Livramento, really good player at right back, also from Chelsea. Unfortunately for him, suffered a really bad injury towards the back end of last season, so they're not going to have him. I think it's going to be a real season of struggle for the Saints, and even though it might not be a popular prediction, I wouldn't at all be surprised if they were the ones to follow Fulham and Bournemouth in going down. A bit of a southern fall there from the Premier League, with three of the teams, well, all of them being southern based, going down. So we're going to move on now to the bottom half. These are teams that have just literally escaped relegation. I expect to be in a scrap for it for some of the season, and let's see who they are. So firstly, 17th place, I'm predicting Leeds United. Now Leeds obviously flirted with relegation much of last year. Sacked Bielsa, brought in Jesse March, who started well, but again the results then started to tail off, and at one point it was looking like they were going to go down. Burnley were on the up after getting rid of Sean Dyche. Everton, obviously they're another team that we'll come on to, but really looked like they were in big trouble, but managed to pull some results at the end, and that is exactly what Leeds did as well. A big win at Brentford on the last day of the season kept them up, but I think it's going to be a season of struggle for them once again. I really like Jesse March as a manager, actually. I think he had a good impact on the team when he came in, plays that sort of attacking style that Bielsa liked to do as well, so it was good that they didn't sack Bielsa and just go straight away for a more negative approach manager, because it's certainly not something the fans want at Leeds. But what I think they're going to struggle mainly is they've lost their two best players. Calvin Phillips to Man City, obviously one that it looked like he had outgrown Leeds, and I think a lot of Leeds fans accepted the decision and wish him all the best, which is good to see. I'm not sure that would have been the case if he went to Man United, which it was looking like he could do at some point. But in the end, gone to Pep and Man City, so be interesting to see how he gets on there. And the other one, obviously, Rafinha, there was that massive saga over him, always looked like he was going to leave. To be fair to him, never sort of forced a move, but my club Arsenal looked like they were going to go in for him. Then it looked like he was going to Chelsea for all money, and then obviously Barcelona came in, somehow managed to pluck 70 million out of thin air, and he is now a Barcelona player. Scored a really nice goal in an El Clasico friendly as well. So yeah, but ultimately that's a massive loss for Leeds. They're probably their best player, and Calvin Phillips their second last season, even though he did have his injury problems. So I think Leeds could really struggle for goals this year. Patrick Bamford had a really good season in the Premier League, but lots of injuries last year, so be interesting to see how he comes back. But I think the goals could dry up, and we know the defence is going to be leaky and they could be on the end of some hammerings, but I still think they've got enough to stay up, and I think a massive part of that is going to be due to their home form and the fans at Ellen Road. Always loud, always noisy. They create a great atmosphere, difficult atmosphere for away teams to come and play. And I think that could be the difference between Leeds going down and staying up. So Leeds just about staying in the Premier League once again. So 16th place now, and I have gone for Everton, and I look at Everton at the minute and I am really worried for them. Not a good pre-season at all, and you can't judge on results necessarily, but performances, Everton fans haven't been happy with those. Additions, I quite like Dwight McNeil. I think that could be a good signing, a very Everton signing, I think most people would agree, but that's a good addition. But I don't think they fixed the problems defensively. Tarkowski they brought in good ball playing centre back, but I'm not sure that's where the problems are for Everton. I think it's in their midfield, or perhaps lack of it. And one of the reasons I'm predicting Everton to stay up is because I cannot see Frank Lampard lasting probably beyond the World Cup, to be honest. I think they could be in real problems, and by the time the World Cup rolls around, Lampard gets sacked, and that leaves an opportunity for them to bring someone in, probably Sean Dyche, who then has a couple of weeks to implement his style, and Everton have a better second half of the season, managed to stay up, and once again the fans at Goodison Park, always a good atmosphere there, so that could be what saves Everton. But it's worrying times for them at the club. They've got 60 million in for Richarlison, haven't really invested any of it, certainly haven't replaced him. There's a number of players out there that Everton fans, I'm sure, would have been happy with. You don't have to spend 60 million once. You could have distributed it around amongst 2 or 3 players, but that hasn't been done. Calvert-Lewin suffered from his injuries last year, so again, interesting to see how he gets on, and goals could be a problem for them, so not too sure about the defence. So difficult season for Everton, but once again a team that I am predicting to stay up. So that is it for Everton. Moving into 15th place now, and I'm going for New Boys Nottingham Forest. So I have predicted one of the New Boys to stay up, and I think out of all of them it's difficult to look otherwise than Forest in terms of most likely to stay in the Premier League, and I think they will. Really busy window for them. They've practically signed 10 or 11 players, so a whole new team really. Firstly, things about Forest is 3 at the back always seems to work well for newly promoted teams. You look at the likes of Sheffield United in their first year, Wolves when they got promoted again. 3 at the back worked really well for them, so that is a style Forest implement. I think could be good for them. Secondly, they've got a good counter-attacking style that was used really effectively in the Championship, and perhaps more significantly the Premier League, when they faced some teams like Arsenal and Leicester and Liverpool in the FA Cup. So won 2 of those games, just lost out to Liverpool, but put in a really strong performance. So a team there that I think it's good for the Premier League. They're back in. Forest, massive club, been away for a long time, but good to have them back, I think. And I really like some of the signings they've made. Lingard is someone that's been talked about a lot, obviously on a lot of money, but if he can hit the ground running like he did at West Ham, and he'll be playing sort of that similar 10 role, as I say, on the counter-attack, I think that could be really effective for them. Sign a couple of players from Huddersfield, who they obviously beat in the playoff final, perhaps a bit fortuitously, but managed to get the job done and sign a couple of their players, good player that has solid seasons for them in the Championship. And Steve Cooper as a manager is someone I really like. He's done well wherever he's gone, often on a tight budget, so it's great that he's been able to spend some money this transfer window, and I think it could reflect in Forest having a pretty solid season in the Premier League, and I certainly think their fans would take 15th place. So moving on now to 14th, and I've got Brentford finishing there. They're obviously a team that came up last year. People not really sure what to expect, as it was their first time in the Premier League, but got a good solid performance from the Bees last season, helped massively by the introduction of Christian Eriksen in January. He had a huge effect on the team, contributed significantly. That 4-1 against Chelsea sticks out, but they have lost him, but I don't think they will suffer necessarily too much. I think that they've got a good solid squad, good foundations there, some decent depth in there as well. Thomas Frank as a manager, I really like him. I like the signings they've made as well. Aaron Hickey was someone that a lot of people were looking at, young Scottish teenager who's playing in Serie A. So perhaps you look at sometimes players struggle to adapt moving from foreign leagues to the Premier League, but I think if there is an exception to that, is the Serie A, which is also quite physical. So really excited to see what he does, playing sort of a wing-back role. And they've been linked currently, as I'm recording this, to Damsgaard, who is a player lots of people remember from the Euros last year. Danish, obviously Brentford got quite a few quite a bit of Danish connection. Obviously, that's where Thomas Frank is from. But Damsgaard was a player that impressed last year at the Euros, scored that great free kick against England in the semi-final. So he is a player that, if anyone can fill that Eriksen void, it could be him. And obviously up top, you've got Ivan Toney and Mbeumo, formed a great partnership last year, got stronger as the season went on, and perhaps Ivan Toney would like a few more goals to his games, but now he's adapted to the Premier League. I think that could arrive, and it wouldn't surprise me if he sort of got into double figures in terms of goals this season. And I think Brentford just sort of have a pretty satisfying season from their regards. Won't necessarily flirt with relegation or anything like that. Won't push up for the European places, but could get a shock result, as we saw a couple of times last season. Obviously the 2-0 against Arsenal at the start of the season, the 4-1 against Chelsea that I mentioned, and that thrilling 3-3 against Liverpool, which was one of the games of last season. So yeah, another really good solid season for Brentford, and I think their fans will certainly take that. So moving on to 13th place now, the last team in this section, and I've gone for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now obviously Wolves, when they got back in the Premier League, started really strongly. A couple of European finishes for them, tailed off a bit the last couple of years, and I do expect that trend to continue. I think ultimately their biggest problem is they've got a really small squad, and in the Premier League nowadays, especially with how the schedule is going to be this year, with breaking for the World Cup, and Wolves will have a lot of players in that with the Portuguese connections obviously. I think that they're a team that are just going to sort of neither be here nor there, not going to sort of qualify for the European places, not going to be in any threat of going down. They don't concede goals, Wolves, especially at home. They've got a fantastic defensive record. Jose Sarr, bought in last year, was a revelation for them between the sticks. But it's the other end where they have their problems. I can't remember exactly how many goals they scored last season, but a lot of the time it was bang on the amount of games they played, which for a team with aspirations as high as Wolves, and that is sort of looking towards those European places, that's not going to cut it from them. Jimenez obviously suffered his really bad injury. Not sure he's ever been quite as sharp since. They've got players like Pedro Neto, who this year is back, which I think is a massive help for them. He was injured for a lot of last year, but great player, and looking forward to seeing him be back at full fitness. And if he performs well, I wouldn't be surprised to see a bigger team come in for him maybe next summer. So yeah, Wolves, neither here nor there. Solid 13th place finish for them, which their fans probably be a bit disappointed in, but it's really congested in these middle areas. As we move into mid-table, so teams 8th to 12th now, so sort of knocking on those door of those European places. And at the start of them, we have Brighton in 12th. Now this is a prediction which, well, Brighton are always a team which are horrible to predict. Every year they sort of underperform their XG, their attacking stats and things like that, which maybe you think, oh, they've improved on that, could properly change those European places. Equally, if they don't, they just continue the same way, they're going to finish about this mid-table place. They've got solid foundations, not going to be in any danger of going down, but it is those attacking areas that is going to define their season. Graham Potter's excellent manager, got them playing a really nice style, which for Brighton fans they've got to be absolutely buzzing with, to spend this long in the Premier League now, and to be honest, never looked like going down these last couple of years. But their key players for me are going to be Trossard, who's a player I really like. When he's on form, Brighton look a completely different team. And perhaps most importantly for them this season, it's going to be their new striker, Undav, who they've brought in from the Belgium League. So always a bit of a risk, but he has genuinely seemed to score goals wherever he's gone. So Brighton fans will certainly be hoping that translates to the Premier League. They had Morpay before, who always could do a job and had a good day, but very inconsistent, which is perhaps what led to them sort of underperforming in terms of their XG, their goals scored, and picking up those crucial points. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. I know a lot of people have got their eye on him for fantasy, hoping that he can start the season well and couple of early goals and really boost the confidence for him. So yeah, Brighton, another very solid season for them, and we'll see how they do, see if they can outperform their XG. Okay, so we've got 11th place now, and I am going for Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. Now, obviously Gerrard came in sort of midway through last season when Dean Smith, obviously Villa through and through, he was sacked. Villa not quite performing perhaps as well as they would have liked, but this season could be completely different. Obviously Gerrard came in last season, had the January transfer window to sort out his team and brought in some really notable additions. Obviously Coutinho being the main one, who started like a house on fire but then tailed off a bit, so maybe that was not used to playing as much football as he has been. Obviously sat at the bench and been injured a lot when he was at Barcelona, but perhaps now this season, but full season of pre-season training, he can properly hit the ground running and be the player that everyone knows he can be. I really like Jacob Ramsey, the young midfielder, England under 21 international. I think he's a great player and I'm looking forward to seeing more of him this season. Gerrard really gave him the opportunities to shine last season, which he did, certainly towards the back end of last season. And Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings up front is an interesting combination. Obviously both had their injury problems, but Watkins really adapted well to the Premier League, and Danny Ings perhaps slightly disappointed in last season, but injury problems didn't help with that. Another player to keep an eye on is Leon Bailey, who they signed from Leverkusen last year. About 35 million, so big money spent on him. Didn't quite do it for them in his first season, so maybe now he's had a year to adapt to the Premier League, could help him hit the ground running. Had a good pre-season as well. I think he scored 3 or 4 goals in that, so lots of people, lots of Villa fans looking at him and thinking they could get a different player this season. So Villa certainly be competitive once again. Gerrard really like him as a manager. Now he's had time to implement his style properly. I think they could have a very solid season. Moving into 10th place now, and I have got Leicester City. Now Leicester are a difficult one. Obviously a team have had enormous amount of success in the last couple of seasons, but the thing with Leicester this summer is they've not bought a single player so far, and we are 2 days away from the start of the season, so that's certainly not going to be happening. But squad is very solid, but there's a number of concerns at Leicester. Obviously Tielemans is someone that's constantly being linked with Arsenal, and it seems just a matter of if Arsenal ever do put a bid in, he's going to be a player that's on the move. Fofana as well, really good centre-half for Leicester, had injury problems last year, as did a lot of their defence, which might be some of the reasons they didn't perform as well as you'd perhaps expected. But yeah, he's someone that's clearly looking to move away and is perhaps causing some problems, which is never good to see. Schmeichel as well, the other notable player who's on the move. He's going to be going to France to play for Nice, and that leaves them without a leader who obviously has been there for so many years, right up from the Championship, seen all the success, and now at the age of 35 has decided to move on. So goalkeeper could be a position that Leicester will look to strengthen him before the start of the season. And there's Vardy up front, injured for a lot of last season, which meant he probably had his most disappointing season in the Premier League. Obviously a lot of that was completely out of his control, but he does seem to be ageless, but he is getting older, so having had an injury like he did last season where he was out for a lot of it, it'll be interesting to see how he copes with playing large amounts of fixtures again. At least he'll get a decent break for the World Cup, having retired from international football. So yeah, Leicester I expect they'll finish bottom of the top half. Them, Villa, Brighton, all sort of be interchangeable. So we're into the top 10 places now, and in 9th place I have got Crystal Palace. I really like Vieira as a manager. I wasn't sure how it was going to go for him last season. Was really surprised with how they did. Played some really nice football and stuff. At times got some good results. Home Selhurst Park's obviously an absolute fortress, so strongly expect that will continue. And I just really like the business they've done in the transfer window. Brought in some good young players who might take some time to adapt, but they've got some quality there, thinking ahead to the future. And in terms of the attacking talent, certainly outside the top six, I'm not sure there's many teams that rival what the options Palace have. Elise sadly looks like he's going to miss the start of the season, but Eze was injured for a lot of last year. Hopefully he's fit. He's a great player. And Zaha, obviously the main one. And normally when you get a Crystal Palace window, it's dominated by if Zaha's going to be on the move, linked constantly to teams like Arsenal and elsewhere around Europe. But this year he seems to be really driven, really motivated, had a good pre-season. He seems to really be buying into Patrick Vieira's project, and perhaps he's always a player you associate with being young, because obviously how his career's developed. But he's a senior player in that Palace side, and his leadership, well, he needs to start being a leader for these younger players for Palace to have success. And I think they could this year, and I think they're going to take a real good stab at the cups as well, which will be great to see. Obviously Vieira won loads of those when he was captain at Arsenal, and I expect him to take them seriously. Once again, they got to the semi-final of the FA Cup last year and were quite unlucky in that game against Chelsea not to reach the final. So yeah, very good season for Palace, and season lots of their fans will be very happy with, I'd imagine. And just missing out on the European places. Obviously this could change depending on the cups and how teams perform in Europe. We have got Newcastle United. Now, last season looked for all money like they were going to go down. Then the takeover, which failed, was eventually completed. They bought in Eddie Howe and they just looked a completely different side. Part of that was due to Eddie Howe, who I really like as a manager, but part of that was due to the extra funds they were able to spend. Trippier was bought in January, played a couple of games, then got injured again, but he's fit, so he'll be one to watch for Newcastle, especially on set pieces, deadly from them. And they've spent the money like we knew they would. The interesting one for me is the striker, Callum Wilson and Chris Wood up top for them. Chris Wood bought in from Burnley last year, whether that was partly a tactical decision to weaken their relegation rivals in Burnley, because he certainly doesn't seem to suit the Eddie Howe style of play. Eddie Howe, someone that likes to get the ball down, play on the counter a lot, rather than have a big target man to lump it up to, like Chris Wood is at Burnley, or was at Burnley, so he didn't quite get the output at Newcastle. But Callum Wilson is the one. Without his injury problems, there's no doubt he's a brilliant forward in the Premier League, and showed that when he was fit, especially under Eddie Howe last season. They've obviously got a good relationship, those two, having been at Bournemouth together. But yeah, when Callum Wilson's fit, he's going to score lots of goals for this Newcastle side, I think. But it's whether he can maintain that fitness. And like I said, with a couple of players, with the World Cup, the break, that could help him, because he's probably not going to. Well, he's not going to be in the England squad, so he'll have a month's rest, which could really help him sort of recover and go again for the second half of the season. And I think Newcastle, with the extra spending, with the fans on side, and with a good manager and squad now, they could be a team that really challenges for those European places, and especially at home gives every single team in the league a really good test. So Newcastle in 8th place, just missing out on Europe. And in Europe, in 7th place, I've gone for West Ham United. Finished 7th last year, so I'm saying they're going to repeat that again. The interesting thing for West Ham is the fact they've got the Conference League. How seriously are they going to take it? Last year they took the Europa League extremely seriously, got some fantastic scouts in it, got all the way to the semi-final, just beaten out by Frankfurt. But they're a team that I expect will be really strong once again. I do expect them to take the Conference League seriously, because For West Ham, European football is something their fans are going to really take seriously, I think, and I think this is going to be the same for David Moyes. So I expect them to have a really good run at the Conference League. Obviously, at the start they'll be able to rest players. They won't need the likes of Declan Rice in those sort of fixtures. But when it gets to the business end, and they've got some big challenges in terms of opponents going away and two-legged ties, I think then they'll take it very seriously, and I do think they'll win it, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure of all the teams that are going to be in it, and there will be teams that drop down from the Europa League, but West Ham showed they can compete with those teams last year, and I do think with Moyes, with Rice, their form at home, I think they can win the UEFA Conference League, which will be a great thing for them. Declan Rice is obviously a player that constantly seems to be linked away from West Ham, but not really this summer. So he's really happy at the club, it seems, really buying into what Moyes is doing there. And obviously it's his boyhood club. He's now the captain. Mark Noble's moved on. So I think he's going to be someone that's going to be inspirational for them once again. Such a great player. I still think he's underrated by a lot of people. Bowen had a really good season last year. Ben Rama, Lanzini, lots of good attacking talent there. Fornal's another one, and they've got the elusive striker they've been looking for so long. I think it was 1,000 or so days that West Ham hadn't signed a striker, but they've signed a really good one, and for West Ham fans that could perhaps be worth the wait. Scamacca from Sassuolo, player lots of clubs were after, including Juventus, obviously the Italian giants, but decided not to stay in Italy, decided to come to England, and it'll be really interesting to see how he performs. As I said earlier, I think Serie A players are perhaps less at risk of struggling to adapt to the Premier League because it is very physical, and I think he could have a really good season for the Irons, and with Antonio there as well, could form a good partnership. How Moyes is going to set them up like that, we're not sure, but be interesting to see. So West Ham, really good season. Conference League again in 7th, but I do think they could win the Conference League, which would promote them to the Europa League once again. Okay, talking of the Europa League, we move into those places with 6th and 5th, and in 6th place I am going for Manchester United. Now, I really like Ten Hag. I think he will do a really good job at Old Trafford if given the time and the resources. But you have to say, you've got to feel sorry for him. He's inherited a squad which needs a lot of TLC and a squad which contains some bad apples. The Ronaldo situation, not helpful for him at all to come into. How that's going to be resolved, we genuinely have no idea. It seems to have been going on for ages. Whether he'll be at Man United, I'm not sure, because as much as I think he wants to leave, I don't know how many teams in world football can afford those wages. You look at the obvious candidates, PSG, you've got to say they'll struggle with Messi and Mbappe to pull that one off. Can you see him going to Barcelona? Don't know, but again, perhaps not likely. Bayern Munich, will he go back to Juve, Atletico? I don't know, and I'm not sure if Man United fans want him, if Ten Hag wants him, and if he does stay, will he be happy there? That's the big question surrounding Man United. Obviously, they've been chasing Frankie de Jong for a long time. He doesn't look like he's interested in a move, which I don't really understand from the Man United point of view. They're such a massive club. They can attract so many players in world football. If a player doesn't want to come, I don't see the point of trying to keep pursuing that deal if a player doesn't look like he's interested in coming. And I think midfield is that area that they will struggle next season. That's something that Man United fans have been talking about for ages, wanting to address, and I'm not sure it's happened this transfer window. So I think Ten Hag will take a while to be able to get the players to adapt to his style. Loves a sort of pressing game, which Man United didn't really do under Ralf Rangnick, despite that being something that he's notorious for. and never really sure what the style was under Solskjaer. So I think Ten Hag, given the opportunity, will be a really good manager for Man United, but I think it is going to take him a while to adapt, and I think they could get back-to-back sixth place finishes. Now this is where it gets really tough. You've got 3 teams at the bottom here that people have got them in so many different orders. But in 5th, I am going for my boys, Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. And there's reason behind this. The main reason being, I think Arsenal are going to win the Europa League this year. I'm so confident in what Arteta's done. I think the summer's been fantastic. And I think we can compete with Chelsea and Tottenham, and will do for most of the season. But I think the latter stages, when we're talking quarterfinals, semi-finals of the Europa League, I think that is where Arteta's going to have his priority, perhaps over finishing 4th, because it gets you a better seed in the Champions League, and sure, you're risking it, but you never know how the fixtures are going to line up in terms of the league anyway. And Europa League, I don't see a team in it currently that Arsenal can't compete with and can't beat. I think the problem will be the Champions League when the group stage is finished with that. Are there going to be any big giants that are going to fall in? We'll have to see, all dependent on the groups obviously. But I think Arsenal I think the transfer window has been one that means Arsenal fans, I don't think we've been more excited as a group for a while. Jesus is obviously the obvious one. Jesus is the obvious one. He looks like he's going to solve the striker problem, which Lacazette tried his best to do. And they're very similar players actually, but Jesus has got age on his side, well, less age on his side, and I think he just provides more quality than Lacazette, so expect him to hit the ground running. Zinchenko is a great option as a backup for Tierney, who can then obviously play in midfield as well. Saliba is one that people seem to forget we've had for 3 years, but he's basically coming in like a new signing. The time away from loan has made him look like an absolute monster, and a player that looks like he's one of the best young centre-halves in Europe. So I think Arsenal are going to be competing all the way for it, but I think when it comes to the business end of the Europa League, that's where the focus is going to be, and that might see them just miss out in terms of the league position. But I think that Arsenal will end up winning the Europa League and getting that elusive European trophy, and I think will try in all the cups as well. Now the squad's bigger, now we've got some more room. Last season it seemed to be, if there was one injury, it sort of derailed the whole team. I'm not sure that's going to be the case this year. The squad depth looks really good, so I think cups is going to be something that Arteta really focuses on. And I think Arsenal gonna be really competitive for the first time in a long time. So that great for the league, obviously, great for us Arsenal fans, and we'll have to see how that goes. So we've got the top 4 now, and in 4th place I have got I've got Chelsea in 4th. Now a lot is being made of what's going on at Chelsea, or what has been going on in pre-season. Obviously lost out to a couple of targets to Barcelona. Brought in Koulibaly and Sterling, who people seem to have sort of forgotten they've brought them in, but they're 2 really, really great signings. Looking to bring in some more players as well. But I think people were overestimating the problems Chelsea have at the minute. I think that firstly they've got fit players in Reece James and Chilwell again, which will be a massive benefit to them. They were the 2 big reasons when they had success last year, and when they got injured it certainly showed in terms of their performances. So having them fit will be really beneficial to them. When the World Cup comes around, that could be a bit of a problem, because you'd expect both of them to be in the England squad, and probably Chilwell especially get a lot of minutes in that. So that could be interesting to see how they cope with that. I think this is a new Chelsea. I think this is what people are forgetting, is that if Tuchel has a bad start, he's not automatically going to get sacked. I don't think that's how this new regime is going to work. I think it's going to be built on time and younger players. Sort maybe you could say similar to what Arsenal are doing, but completely different way of going about it. I think Chelsea, obviously Arsenal had to completely rebuild. Chelsea sort of only did a partial rebuild. They've got a lot of senior players in the squad at the minute, and that in the long term could be a problem, but sort of getting them moved on and replacing them. But I think for this season it's not going to be too much of an issue. I think they're going to be very solid, good at home. The problem for them perhaps could be where the goals come from. Lukaku didn't work, whether it was Tuchel not adapting to Lukaku or Lukaku not adapting to Tuchel. It didn't work at all, really. He's obviously moved on. Werner looks like he's pushing for a move out. So the goals could be where the problems come from. I'm not sure Havertz has got the... how to put it? Havertz is a quality player, but I'm not sure he's a player that's going to score 20 goals up top for Chelsea in the Premier League. I think they're going to very much share their goals out once again, coming all over the areas of the pitch. The wing backs, obviously, Mount, Havertz will chip in with a few. Whoever else gets the opportunity there. Hudson-Odoi, obviously, is still at the club. So yeah, Chelsea, an interesting season for them. Maybe a bit of a transitional season, but I still see them having enough to get into the Champions League, but perhaps not competing like we expected last season. Third place, we're going for Tottenham. Now, people saying what a great window they have, and I do tend to agree with that. I think that Spence, Richarlison, even though they might have slightly overpaid on him, still getting a quality player from a Premier League team, so it is never going to be cheap. But I think that's a good signing for them. Perisic brings great experience to them, someone that Conte's worked with previously, so he's going to be really good for them. I don't make too much of his age. This Tottenham project is all in the short term. Conte's not manager that's going to be sticking around for 4 or 5 years, 3 probably at the max. And what he's looking to do is get short-term success, whether that be a trophy, which again I strongly expect them to go strong for the Cups, and challenging Liverpool and Man City. I'm not sure about the centre halves. I really like Romero. I think Romero is one of the best centre halves in the league. I'm not sure about who his partner's going to be. Dyer looked good last season, looked a lot better, but he's got that rash moment in him, that moment of inconsistency. The same with Davinson Sanchez. Ben Davies was a sort of revelation playing at left centre back, but I think some teams could target him. I'm not sure about Longley. I've watched him play a bit for Barcelona. I know a lot of most Barcelona fans weren't a fan of him at all. I think he could really struggle in the Premier League. Good news for Tottenham is it's only a loan, so they don't have to activate or buy him permanently. If he obviously doesn't do well like I expect, he might struggle. So Tottenham, I think they will have a good season, and a lot of it will depend on Son and Kane again. They're the best duo in the league, if that is a term. Yeah, expect them to get sort of 40, 50 goal contributions between them, really. Kane has obviously started playing this more playmaker style, which really helps Son, who was brilliant last year. Kulusevski again, really good player that they've managed to bring in on loan last year and make that permanent. And like the midfield as well, the likes of Højbjerg, Bentancur, got some solid midfielders there that suit Conte's style. So yeah, good season for Tottenham, and I think they'll certainly take third place, and I do expect them to challenge for a bit with the top two, but I think it'll be that consistency for Tottenham. They're always capable of dropping a point, well, drawing a game. You wouldn't expect them to draw, which again is the same for Chelsea and Arsenal, but City and Liverpool don't seem to do that, and I'm not sure Tottenham are capable of getting to that sort of 90-point mark, which you're going to need to win the league in this the way it is with City and Liverpool's dominance. So it all comes down to this: first or second, City or Liverpool. We all knew it was going to be these two, but which one have I got winning the league, or which one have I got finishing second? And the answer is I've got Man City to finish in second place this season, and Liverpool to win the league this year. Now, this comes down to a couple of reasons. The main one being, I think Liverpool's squad depth, for the first time sort of in this Klopp versus Pep era, is stronger than Man City's. City you've always looked at and never known who's going to be playing for them, who's going to be starting, especially in those attacking areas. But they've lost a number of those players, and they've obviously got Haaland. He's going to be brilliant for them. He's going to score loads and loads of goals. Everyone knows that. I'm normally a fan of players from the Bundesliga coming over and doing well, but he's the exception to that. I think can't see any scenario where he doesn't score lots of goals. The problem for him is he's going to be playing basically every single game. Him and De Bruyne, you don't expect to see any rotation there at all. Now they've lost the likes of Sterling, Jesus. Bernardo Silva is an interesting one. I think he is one of Man City's best players, but I doubt but he could be one that's on the move, which would be strange to see, but a massive blow to City. They've signed this Alvarez from the Argentinian. He looks like he could be a sharp player, a bit of a sort of Luis Diaz type player at Liverpool, I think. But I think it comes down to the squad depth. You look at Liverpool; they've not lost any sort of crucial player to their team. You've looked at it, you thought Firmino could be on the move with the signing of Darwin Núñez. That hasn't happened. They're going to have plenty of opportunity to rotate players, which they simply haven't been able to do in any competition really in the last couple of years. That's always where you sort of thought City had the edge, is that starting 11, you could argue Liverpool's was stronger, but City had the better depth, which is what won them the league. I think it's the opposite this year for the first time. I think City have got the stronger team, starting 11, with De Bruyne and Haaland and Cancelo. But Calvin Phillips as well, I think will be really good for them. Grealish in his second season will be much better. But I think Liverpool have got that stronger squad. I think that could be what sees them over the line, and it's just going to be a couple of games. We know the games between them are going to be really tight, and it could come down to one of them winning at home and then holding the other one to a draw away, or it just could come down to two points once again. Where those 2 points are going to come from, we don't know. The World Cup could have a big impact on it, how players come back, because if someone like Trent goes away with England, gets injured, that's going to be catastrophic for Liverpool. Same with Van Dijk, same with De Bruyne. Haaland obviously won't have to worry about that as much. Well, we won't have to worry about it. Norway not qualifying, so he will be able to get that rest at least, which will help him cope with the physicality of the Premier League. Darwin Núñez, someone I haven't mentioned much. He's someone that obviously, for whatever reason, got a lot of stick and people saying he's no good after missing some chances in a pre-season friendly. Honestly, it's ridiculous. He's going to be really good for Liverpool. I think he's looked brilliant in the Champions League last year, and that's where you can judge a player. And you have to say players from Portugal tend to do really well as well. You look at like Bruno Fernandes and a couple of the Wolves players as well. They've not taken a long time to adapt to the Premier League. It's a very physical league, and Benfica v Porto, it'll be a similar situation for him here with Liverpool City fighting out for the title. So there you go. There's the predictions. If I run through them just once more, you've got Southampton, Fulham and Bournemouth going down. Wolves, Brentford, Forest, Everton and Leeds occupying those bottom half places. Newcastle, Palace, Leicester, Villa, Brighton, they're going to be sort of bottom of top half, top of the bottom half, and they're the ones where these predictions can go wrong. One of them could have a great season and qualify for the European places, or they could equally have a really bad season and end up fighting for survival. So they're the ones where these predictions can go a bit wrong. West Ham in 7th in the Conference League, and I do expect them to win the Conference League and get into the Europa League anyway next season. Man United and Arsenal in the Europa League places, and I expect Arsenal will win the Europa League and get into the Champions League places. And then City, Tottenham and Chelsea qualifying for the Champions League, along with Liverpool, who will be champions. The other thing I didn't mention as well with City is, I think, could be make or break for them in the Champions League this year with the smaller squad, and I do expect them to properly go all out for that. Whereas you look at Liverpool, perhaps a bigger squad could suggest that they're going to be in a better position to, when they do need to rotate their team, do it a bit better in the cups, and then if they do get to the latter stages, can afford to do it in the Premier League and still pick up 3 points. So there they are. There's my predictions for the Premier League next season, and I'm going to be doing what seems to be the common thing at the end of the season when I come back to renew them. You do sort of a points-based system. So if you get Liverpool, if Liverpool win the league like I predicted them to do, you get 0 points because you've got them in the right position. But if City win the Premier League, then I get 1 point because I predicted them to come second. They've come first. They're 1 point out, so one place out. So I get a point for that. And it's just like golf. You want as fewer points as possible, and sort of around the 40-50 mark. That's about an average season. I know some people do really well with it, but it only takes a sort of Southampton to end up doing really well, or Fulham to end up doing really well, stand up, and then that can sort of completely ruins your predictions. But we will have to see. But there you go. There's my Premier League predictions for the season. We'll have to see. It all starts on Friday. This has been recorded on a Wednesday, so just not only a couple of days to find out. And of course, you never know as well what's going to happen with the rest of the transfer window. There's still about a month remaining, so signing could come in there that could change all my predictions, but it'll be too late by then. But there you go, my Premier League predictions for this season. And yeah, lots more content coming on the channel.